Deadpool, all roles of Deadpool avoided it entirely. So the fact that like we're seeing Vanguard Deadpool on Domination especially get first ultimate up, have the ban hammer, use it on the strategist line to force into motion. You just give up the fight because you don't want to potentially lose a strategist because you can't heal for 8 seconds, or it forces you to have to take it and burn all of your resources. And so we get ready to go into the ban draft. Do we see anything unusual? Or is it going to continue looking like Gambit first ban into Elsa mirror saves? Because currently Strays actually and Peps both in alignment. Gambit gets through, Elsa does not, which means, Ryan, when we look down later through this line, things like Gambit, Rogue, Star-Lord, all going to have to be looked at much more.
This is brave. Gambit, yeah. I think both teams, it's almost like a sort of handshake of like, let's just pretend that Gambit doesn't exist so we can both get our hands on him, to the point that Invisible Woman has been protected over him first. This is, I wouldn't say unprecedented, I'm not going that far, but this is definitely peculiar, as both these teams know that they both like to play triple strategist. Like I mentioned before, you've got Fire Strays that have been very anti-playing Gambit themselves. Not going to get the choice here, but I can't imagine that Peps are going to be allowed to protect it right at the end of this draft either.
No, there's the Gambit ban coming on through on the side of Strays. Peps now going to be banning out that Loki before Strays get the opportunity to save it. But because it was a Loki ban instead of the Mantis, they could potentially go for the Mantis, or we're going to see the protection on the Strange. And remember, there was a new team up that was added to the game. So Invisible Woman and Doctor Strange does actually mean that your Doctor Strange does a lot more damage in terms of the frontline potential.
It's very different in this approach, like both these teams trying to throw a couple more curveballs. And for both these teams as well, like narratively, both of them had atrocious week ones. Weren't able to win any of the games that they had. Week 2, a lot better. Peps at least being able to get that win over, I think it was Pulsar, and then winning Alta Esports in that sort of matchup to decide it. It's going to be the group taken out at the end. Not a Mantis, actually, that's going to be banned out for Team Peps for Fire Stray. So that's left open, actually, for, I believe it's Zenos that's been picking it up the most. Yeah,
Mantis, Ultron, Invisible Woman is available for Strays if they want it. They could go for it, as they'll also be able to have access to the Jeff, since it was a save on the side of Peps, but it was not banned out on their end towards Strays. But we also have Daredevil, and I feel like when one team plays Daredevil, you both have to play Daredevil, and that's why we're going to see more Jeff coming back into play, because Venom also got through the ban line, Ryan, which means that if you want to play Daredevil dive, you have both the Daredevil, the Venom, and the Jeff to get the premier dive composition, fast hits, survivability with symbiotic shenanigans, and just being able to clear up a lot of map space for free.
Okay, this is an interesting game with both these teams showing bright moments at the right times. This isn't quite Coffin Baby versus Dying Ant as much as people on Reddit might want you to believe. These are two teams that are looking to see if they can continue on here, to see if after that torrid first week they can build upon this a little bit more. Domination, a bit of a rough start for both these teams, but you have to imagine that Fire Strays are going to be the favorites here. Going over to Binary actually on the Hulk to begin with too. It's been a lot of him on the other side, and Frankie boxing, clobbering time. A lot of haymakers coming out potentially on the thing.
Okay, are we getting a portal drop from Blacks Out? Yep. To instantly drop on Peps. Now, here's the thing. Normally, Daredevil's passive would be able to detect movement, but it's actually blocked off by Portal. So, Peps have to turn and deal with it instead. Great bubble coming on through from IMLK, but it does get broken. 6 goes down. The XL2 onto IMLK now takes him back into puny banner form, and that will then move on to putting the pressure onto Protoss. And in the first Portal sweep, Strays will be able to find all of the eliminations, 0 trades, later elimination onto Baby Bat, then onto Frankie Boxing, and that is a clean fight win for Strays into first point cap.
Yeah, and 6 is sort of looking towards him playing the Deadpool. Seeing if he could actually get the ultimates working online early on, but actually it's Zenos that's got the ban hammer in hand. See if he can actually go in for these fights, and certainly a different look with how they've been played.
I mean, they got the elimination onto 6, which resets the ultimate, as opposed to Zenos, who stayed alive through the whole fight. and manages to apply it onto Team Peps, but no elimination comes off the back of it. A whole lot of damage reduction as well as pure coming through in the form of those Hulk bubbles. As Peps now, they've got the Jeff ult. They could potentially make a play here. Strays don't have anything outside of the bubbles coming through from Binary to be able to block this. Everyone should be able to just stack up and anticipate so no one gets hit. Blackstar now gets to use that Eye of Agamotto, knowing that Protoss can't dodge out of it, and you're relying on Baby Bat instead with the invisible boundary mirrored by Closer. We go down to sustainability, but Peps having Frankie boxing on the thing means vulnerability applied on top of Stray's players, and that's enough to break through the invisible boundary mirror.
Yeah, Deadpool in your area is making the perspective of watching Frankie boxing just melee onto people a little bit more colorful in its ambition. So now Team Peps seeing if they could actually get this point in their favor. Worldbreaker is even going to be dedicated to 6. Now trying to leap in. Pink going to focusing onto the target of Xenos. The Deadpool strategist not able to do all that much this time as he was trying to reset the rest of his team. Seeing if they can build a little bit more as they've reached 3/4 progression on this first point. More of a mad scramble. It really pretty much is just a straight brawl out on this point of Benim T'Challa. There's no eliminations, a clean cut. There's no poke. It's just a lot of punch. Eye of Agamotto connected onto Pink on the other side, but the peel is there immediately. Nice work in the end from IMLK, but it's still a Daredevil that goes down in the process on the back of Closer. Now you've got It's Jeff going to be used to see if it can get any grabs, and the clobbering time actually connects onto 3 from Fire Strays. Watching it from this perspective is just chaotic, to say the very least, as both the GFs grabbing up onto the enemies as much as they can, seeing if they can be pulled off of the maps. It's Slopper that is able to get onto 2, and Team Peps losing out numbers again. Moxie, that was probably one of the most chaotic fights I think we've seen on a domination point.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the first fight, it pretty much just rolled into one massive brawl for the whole rest of the round. To be wholly honest with you. And I feel like that's where things like the Deadpool, no matter what role you're on, really thrives. There's so much chaos. He can continue adding to that. He can poke away. You've got survivability too, since you're running the strategist version of the Deadpool and have all of your ultimates built up to put the pressure onto those squishy players. And for Strays, it also meant that they gave up 0 map control. Like, they did not have to play into the really punishing retake positions. Peps had to literally fight for every inch that they could just take steps outside of their own choke from.
And let's see if this is going to be a little bit better as Fire Strays. Black Stars, still on the Strange. Could go for a portal play again, as it did seem to have a lot of success beforehand. Frankie boxing, maybe considering doing the same himself. There has been a lot more of just staying on the Strange just with the impact of the likes of Eye of Agamotto, especially when you have a lot more like Hulk thing, less barriers to actually block some of the big stuns coming in. And like you mentioned, that team up with Invisible Woman that is often ignored, maybe invisible to the majority of people, but it has impact. These small margins make a big difference. But Fire Strays, instead of trying to go for a kidnap play, looking for the more offensive, and then the dive in full Maelstrom is able to get a lot of damage done, and then you got a Worldbreaker and an invisible boundary stacking on Team Peps. This is a bit of a steel cylinder crushing them in, but they're actually able to hold on and survive this for the most part. In fact, going for a counter attack with the Let the Devil Out, flushing through water, falling onto the objective, but nobody's gone down. This has been a crazy fight, but the stun actually onto Black Sow as the Eye of Agamotto comes in means that it's going to be interrupted back down to 50% as Let the Devil Out is going to be used on the other side. Peps doing well to keep themselves in the fight, Moxie, but it seems that Fire Strays just having a little bit more to burn.
Yeah, I mean, the exile onto Blacks through the Eye of Agamotto was absolutely massive. Unfortunately, what it's done is delayed the problem to this next fight. Also for Peps, like, they had the survivability with the invisible boundary mirror, but they got no elimination. So once that dropped, they'd already lost their Let the Devil Out. Demon was still holding his. As Blackstar now on the Strange, again with the Eye of Agamotto back off of losing 50% of the charge. Scouts out Peps rotation as we get Pink moving now off of the Daredevil onto the Punisher. Early connection, Eye of Agamotto finds the stuns onto Peps, forces them to have to just hold their position around this corner to try to stabilize the team. Everyone, this is the thing when you play Hulk, right? You have to stack so that you all receive the guard, and that means that when Strays focus all of their damage into one space, they're coming at it from multiple angles, and Peps only have the one area to just try and take all of the hits.
Peps having struggled a little bit more. You could sort of see just how much FYR Strays are cordoned up in this position. You've got IMLK trying to pull them back onto the objective to create some space in the World Breaker to rely on, just in case he needs a little bit more survivability. Gets the stun onto the Jeff, but the Jeff is going to just Jeff his way out of the occasion, actually grabbing onto IMLK to make very little use of the duration of the ultimate in the hands now. But Sloppo is seeing if he can quite hold on for as much as he possibly can. It's 68% now for FYR Strays as World Breaker is going to be used on their side alongside Invisible Boundary. Don't think Frankie Box is able to get that much with the Eye of Agamotto. It's the same as before. Even if he does connect, there's no eliminations coming through at all. There's no names in blue in the kill feed in the slightest. Team Peps are just struggling to actually turn this into any form of pick.
Oh, Protoss doesn't manage to eat as well, which means that you get locked into the animation with the bubble, so Sloppo punishes. Peps now get the eliminations. It costs them Invisible Boundary for the slow to lock Strays up, forcing them to have to stand up to the damage potential of the final judgment coming through from Pink. But the problem now is you don't have Invisible Boundary or its Jeff to be able to deal with the incoming damage. And Strays, they're just going to start the fight. Yeah, they're going to portal right onto the point itself to force Peps to walk into them because you've got Eye of Agamotto. You have uncontested Let the Devil Out too. Ooh, Demon's going to be able to keep up this damage. Big XL comes through onto Blackside, but that means that he does have the Eye of Agamotto still up. The flip comes through. Peps don't touch in time. And they're now locked into just taking the damage coming on through from that Daredevil. Eye of Agamotto doesn't find the connection. There's too many shields as well as force physics in the way, but with Strays getting that flip, Ryan, they flipped it to OT. Sloppo gets the edge. Jeff closer will have Invisible Boundary for Strays to be able to stabilize this point. Peps have to find eliminations now.
Yeah, they have to look at those duelists to be in order to do it, and Pink wants to bring himself back into the fight almost as another final judgment, which wasn't used all that long ago. It's Jeff is now going to be used on the side of Protoss. See if he can get like a nuclear grab like he did up against Team Heretics in that first week. Maybe not quite the same, though. Zanost has been stunned out and has to use the Banhammer to keep himself going in this fight, in this engagement. Its focus is going on to IMLK, who is struggling to keep this going. It's no eliminations yet again for Team Peps as they're dropping one by one, albeit a lot slower in the end. Frankie Boxing sent back at this point in time, and now it's really only down to the Jeff holding on for Protoss only for a second, and a final judgment from Pink. It comes out at the right time, but there's so little to work with. In the end, it's going to be FYR Strays winning this out 2-0, and Peps still struggling to get a point of anything in playoffs.
Yeah, there's like two ways for Peps that you're winning that fight the moment Invisible Boundary comes up. One, everyone lives, you keep your Punisher up, Invisible Boundary ends, you have Final Judgment, you sweep the fight. Or you lose your Strange early, he sets up the TP for the rest of the team, someone else holds point, and you get your Punisher back into the fight with ultimate that way. Unfortunately for Peps, none of those happen. They lose the Punisher before Final Judgment can be built up, so no eliminations off of the back of that, and they lose Frankie Boxing, who's on the Doctor Strange far too late. He's one of the last people to fall, which means that they don't have the opportunity of using the Strange TP the way that Strays had zero access to it because they used it before to just go past the choke, establish their position on point, and force Peps into having to come into the brawl when point had already flipped.
Some quick maths there as well. It was 10 eliminations that Team Peps were able to grab, and it looked to be about 30 on the side of FYR Strays, which did really feel to be the difference. There's so much strategist support coming through with the amounts of healing, and a lot more done for Peps, but just the elimination not there.
If you want to do maths, look at the stats. Look at the amount of damage that Blackside did on Strange.
It was pretty much farming all the way through and looking a lot stronger, like we typically see him on the likes of Groot, but this Strange has been working out for him. And FYR Strays has been working out a lot better. We'll see how this series continues, if Peps can bring a Pep back into their step or its elimination after this quick break.
Watch out, they're headed our way! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man! 1,000 gods!
If the last game, or if the last series that we had was a battle, this one, everyone's coming into it going, fight, 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 fight. Just going as hard as they can. We see the return of strategist Deadpool coming in here, combined with the Hulk that we were told was a potential good combo with it earlier. And then we saw the Jeff, another integral part, being used as a counter multiple times to eat Monster Hulk. Moxie, what just happened?
Brawl. I know, like, there's so many arguments for what constitutes a brawl composition. That is brawl comp. There you go. Like, you take a fight, it lasts, what, 30 seconds, potentially more, and you just continue going. Like, ultimate's neutral, you brawl it out, you hold your position, you just melt away with your melees and your bubbles, and you're just being able to hold on to that point as long as possible. But I feel like you can do that more in domination, where you can really concentrate where the fights happen. Less so, though, is it going to be possible in places like Convoy, where you have to move your position as the objective changes too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Ryan,
not
we're
quite
heading
Fogwell's
to
dream.
Convoy.
Yeah.
We're heading to Araco next. What do you got for me?
Kind of like what Moxie said, like, you've got this constantly moving objective. You've got Frankie boxing that can bring out a little bit more of the Angela, which is promising for them. You've got some more melee options, I suppose, Wolverine notably, so I'm excited to see what Demon's going to do there. Now that there's more fastballs potentially to be used, it's going to be like throwing it back to the old ages of 2025. But kind of like I said just there, like, it's not quite like Fogwell's Gym, where you've just got all of these like brawling fights happening, where it's a whole boxing match between the two teams. But it is like, you have to separate yourselves here a little bit. I think for some moments for like Peps, the thing that makes me feel stronger about them than say like Vision or like Fire was like the flying compositions that we saw in like Celestial Husk. That they were like playing with a couple of cute ideas, to say the very least. I would like to see them here, because right now Fire Strays have sort of worked out how they want to identify themselves as a team, and now started to hit their stride a lot more.
Let's see if Peps can do the same thing, as we're going to be heading in to map number 2. Will Fire Strays extend their lead, or will Peps, as Ryan said earlier, be bringing a little bit of a pep back into their step?
I feel like, I mean, yeah, I feel like that last map, that was actually almost traveling back to old school test server Rivals, where teams like tried experimenting with a triple Vanguard outlook and just couldn't make it work with the amount of damage that Punisher could output, both with infinite ammo team up, throwbacks to all of the OGs, but also Final Judgment too. The fact that Pep's literally the only fight that they could win to be able to break through the triple strategist line with the strategist Deadpool in play were the Final Judgment fights. Yeah, that was old school Rivals, baby. As we'll be getting new school Rivals in that instant ban Elsa comes through instantly. Not surprised about that one, but will we see a continuation? Like, is it still going to be Brawl with an Invisible Woman save? No, we're going back into damage-loaded compositions. Mantis comes through instead. So we're moving away from one extremity of the sustain composition, and we're coming back into the we have all of the damage, we blitz you through the moment that we see you play instead.
Oh, the Fire Strays actually want to go for the one-side Invisible Woman first, which, yeah, feels... Certainly on that last point, I think the highlight of... yeah, the team up with Doctor Strange, and then look at how much damage Doctor Strange just did, and you're like, oh my god. Like, yeah, this is possibly a direction that things are going to go. But it does mean now that you have got, like, still the option for, like, a Mantis to be protected later on, but I would imagine that when we see these mirrored bans in this, like, second phase of the draft, Moxie, I'd imagine that, yeah, the Mantis is going to be taken out one-sided on the side of Team Peps.
Yeah, I think like for Peps now as well, you have the Mantis to be able to push your damage higher, both for your ultimate output, but also for your neutral output. Because that was something that they were lacking when we look at those rounds of domination. Both of those teams having very similar styled compositions designed to go at it tooth and nail for a good 30 seconds per fight, but Strays were the ones coming through the eliminations, means that Peps, the target focus wasn't quite there. Multiple people fighting different players at the same time, as opposed to looking at just the one, finding the elimination, and then moving on. Mantis at least alleviates some of that problem, as we're now going to see the Loki save coming on through on the side of Strays, which does mean that even though Peps will get a save onto Gambit, this is exactly what Strays actually used against Na'Vi when they pulled the map of Museum of Contemplation. If Peps run the Gambit here, Strays just have God of Mischief up and will be able to walk away with the copy.
I could have gone for it there, but it does almost feel like if you fire Strays, yeah, you have to ban out the Gambit here. This is a team that doesn't typically want to play it, so even like the ban on the other side wasn't necessary all that much for Team Peps, but it does keep it a little bit more honest. And I think when you have the Mantis Protect, similar to like the last map that we saw in Benim T'Challa, yeah, you can have that if you want, because we're going to ban out like the likes of Loki and Groot. So even if you do have it one-sided, we don't care. We're just going to make sure that that team up can't be fully fleshed out. They got rid of the Loki at the very least, but the Groot is still available and one-sided on the side of Peps too.
Yeah, something else that Peps were able to secure is Mantis Ultron. So triple strategist line, they won't have Invisible Woman, but they can still apply something like a Lunar Snow to be that third strategist. And it being a Racco, we can start to see why Peps wanted to take us here specifically for a convoy map, because we've been talking about Frankie Boxing's potential on the Angela. This is one of Angela's strongest maps. And now we get to see a little bit more context to why Strays were putting so much value into the Invisible Woman, both in terms of synergy with the Doctor Strange, but also being able to counterplay versus Peps' Vanguard line.
I think it's helped out Blaxow a lot too, because he was somebody that was known very much for playing for Fnatic, like with the Groot, was considered one of the strongest Groot players out there. Whilst Groot is still strong, not going to be available at all for Blaxow to play, he's now just going almost exclusively for the Strange in its stead. And I think it works a lot with that team up, and just in a lot of these moments, often overlooked, and there's been a lot of buffs that Strange has managed to grab over the last couple of patches. So Fire Strays on this defense, hoping to stem the attack from Team Peps. It's been a struggle for them in the preseason playoffs so far. They've not been able to get a point. Hopefully want to get past first this time.
Well, Strays though, it's full stall. Loki, Adam, so potential cast of Invisible Boundary, potential cast of Karmic Revival Copy, and instantly, like Peps, again, they're just going to be moving to this very front-loaded, damage-heavy composition. You've got Punisher, you've got Phoenix, you keep applying those damage boosts, and you melt through Strays, even getting to use the Groot Walls to interfere with Binary's jump positions, but it's IMLK who falls instead. The thing is vulnerable to poke, but if he gets to brawl in the close quarters and apply the vulnerability, Strays, despite lacking a duelist, have enough damage burst to bring Peps' players down.
It's a little bit threatening, I suppose, with how this has all gone. It's already been a minute and we've managed to move about 20 meters. So you're looking at Peps, you're looking at 6 especially to build up these final judgments to be the difference to actually break through stuff, but it hasn't worked out so far today from a lot of the teams. Able to get a pick onto Demon, but he is going to come back with a life cocoon, and there's trades either way, which means that this fight has not gone the way of Team Peps. More time has been bought.
I mean, huge isolation from the Unicorn Shield coming on through from Frankie Boxing, setting up the elimination onto Demon, forcing the self-res, which is big. The Atom's about to hit the Karmic Revival. You have to burn that cooldown before the fight can start, as Binary's just on absolute fire at the moment. Slopper with the Banhammer setup, the Thing coming on through with that follow-up, and Strays haven't even been pushed to the point of losing players where they're forced into going for an early low-key copy when Demon does not have the ult. Like, Peps are coming in with 2 ults that can both full sweep Strays as players, but if they don't get the Loki or the Atom, Strays is bringing them right back.
They managed to actually get the pick onto close side though, so it means that there's going to be a copy for the Adam ultimate in order to bring them back. They're going to go down, so it's not going to last too long, but Demon's actually built up his own Karmic Revival. Could be more forced out in the end if Fire Strays are feeling a little bit cheeky. Because they're not spent for the copy though, he has the life cocoon, so it has kept going. Means that there's not too much to worry about. You've got the Eye Bag Motor used on the other side, and a Soul Resurgence combination with a Final Judgment. That might be enough, but they need to find Demon or there's going to be another Karmic Revival. All of these players going down. I don't see the Adam Warlock. He might be sitting pretty on this one, and there it is. Everybody's back in full stead, looking for the End Song Inferno, trying to avoid it at all costs, and Team Peps have to deal with it all again.
Yeah, not so much sitting pretty as levitating slightly above the ground prettily, bringing Strays' players back. IMLK, though, does have Strangling Prison. 6 falls before he can follow up, as instead of Peps making the first move, it's Binary. Clobbering Time forces out the fate of both worlds, but Peps have already lost players, and that means that they're going to be down Luna all in this last-minute recontest. IMLK's got the Groot ult, but can you actually get close enough to Strays to be able to use it and set up eliminations? Snost back in neutral will have regeneration domain. Demon will have the soul bond back up. Like, Peps, there's desperation plays having to come on through. We're going Moon Knight. This is the only duelist who, with the changes to ult generation, will have the ult up in time to follow through with the Groot ult.
It's a very big uh-oh moment in the end now, as it's going to be a build-up of the ultimate from Slop. Oh, the banhammer comes through, and there's the aggression from the defensive side of Fire Strays. They managed to find the picks, but Binary's gone down in the overstep as Protoss has been able to take him out. But this is so much of a pushback. The Team Peps have to dedicate some big forms of utility in order to go fight this. The stuns go in onto the thing, and Moon Knight goes down whilst he's built up the hand of Khonshu. That combination with the group might not be in play. IMLK was holding on to it for so long. Is there going to be a touch? There has to be, as overtime is now going to loom, but you can see the Fire Strays almost playing with their food, ready to set up in this fight to make sure that this pressure is going to cook Team Peps alive. Clobbering Time means that there's a little bit of grace now for Frankie Boxing as the haymakers start to swing, but now an I Am Groot coming through, the Strangler Prison able to find the picks, and there's not going to be that camera revival this time. Portal play potentially, I don't know in the end, because Black Star's been on it, but there's been a switch around to get Hosard to get onto it to see if there can be that stall.
I mean, can they manage to get the portal through in time? No. So slight misplay actually comes through on the side of Strays that Znost had God of Mischief. Could have gone for the copy onto Demon, but Demon gets taken down, has to burn the self-revive to bring himself back into the fight, and Znost gets caught out by Strangling Prison as opposed to being posted up in a way that Peps can't get on top of the Loki to stop the res copy. Has to go for the CD copy instead, Eternal Bond, but he goes down mid-dash to the Strangling Prison Hand of Khonshu combo, and Peps gets an opportunity to push into second, with Demon Eye swapping off of the Adam and onto the Bucky instead. Big pickup, though, comes on through from Sloppo, claiming the high ground position for Strays, and this means that they can poke past the Groot Wall protections from IMLK. Groot Walls might be able to isolate Vanguards, but here above the ground, Demon has a perfect Eagle Eyes vantage point to take the Vanguard down.
Now seeing how much they can fight in the end of Fire Strays, like they've changed up their composition very quickly, even with the sort of portal mistake, back onto what they want to be, as we have Jean Grey's just traded shots over at the same time. See, it's a little bit more stressful from Protoss' perspective as the Mantis is trying to clamber up another Soul Resurgence to really allow this team to go. Six has actually switched away from the Punisher as well, full on ultimate to go for the Ultron. Now they have to be ushered back as Binary's brought out the Banhammer, and you can see just the eliminations for Fire Strays coming through. Team Peps adjusting whilst they go along, and I'm really curious, like the final judgment was in hand, decided to go and switch off of it. A Rage of Ultron is going to be built up fairly quickly, but that would have been the case anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, Rage of Ultron means that you have CC immunity. It also allows you to have a triple strategist line to keep up with the sustainability of both Invisible Woman and Loki. Regeneration Domain is in itself an ultimate, so Strays essentially have 3 defensive cooldowns. So they'll be coming into this fight with, well, 3 defensive cooldowns plus those ultimates, as Closer has Invisible Boundary, Snost having that God of Mischief. Six can kickstart all of this, and Peps will have to make a move soon. Strays, they're happy to let the time burn down. Peps have to make the first play with this Rage of Ultron engagement, but Regeneration Domain just allows Strays to disengage. They'll lose the Winter Soldier at the tail end of it once those runes are broken, having to actually burn out the Invisible Boundary as well to get into a position where Peps don't push for more.
This has really been a chaotic series so far, and we're only into map 2 with a potential 5 maps to go. Eye of Agamotto leaping in, it connects onto Pink, but he's on his own. There's no sustain or support coming in from the strategist. That means he's taken out. The overstep might be able to be countered from Frankie Boxing as he goes to avenge his teammate, but the fight on objective is a laborious one for both sides. You got the copy from Xenos going in for the Invisible Woman, so the boundary is going to be up as overtime is hit, and you've already lost one of those 3 strategists. Soul Resurgence is going to be used to make this fight 5v6 work a little bit better in the end, and Pink is now going to be the one switching over to Strange. I feel like we've seen 5 or 6 different players over on the Doctor himself to see if the Sorcerer Supreme can do a lot when it comes to these fights going a little bit longer and a little bit more brawly. Final Judgment, sorry, the Kraken's Impact is going to come in from Demon to see if he can absolutely clear through. Final Judgment even, it's just so chaotic, it's hard to keep up. I feel like all sorts. How are the Ducks going to be involved in this fight? I swear in a minute, because of how this whole thing has been going. But Fire Strays, they're just holding on as much as they possibly can to see and stop Team Peps from going any further. A point taken at least, Moxie, but good God, they had to stress over it.
Yeah, I mean, for Peps, not a full hold. I think like they'll be happy that it was not a full hold because it came so close. It came so close to being a full shutout situation, and we saw even yesterday that getting that far on Araco can be enough to win you the round. The problem here for Peps is that like they just don't have access to the same stall outs that Strays had, right? Loki banned out, so you can't go for the Loki Adam. Instead, it looks like they're not even going to go for the Adam. They're just going to play for this Mantis Ultron Luna composition where you're going to be able to have the Ultron give the drone to your Angela. We're also seeing Pink actually commit to the Human Torch. Reminder as well, this is still 7.0. This is not 7.5 Torch rework, but this is not the first time that Peps have made a play like this, right? They copied the Shikigami composition from when they were playing up against Na'Vi and actually took Na'Vi to 99% on some rounds of Celestial Husk when they matched up against them earlier in the group stages.
I think a lot of this, you know, Peps went for this composition before, but I think a lot of it is comfort. When it comes to like this defense, it's a lot more abstract from what we've seen from typical, in inverted commas, meta options. But like, you've got Frankie boxing on Angela. This is a very good Angela point. You've got Pink that was on the Torch, did a lot. Six that's been on the Ultron. It really feels like just play what you're good at. Like, that's how we make the differences here. Just go for that kind of like major level character that you're good on and see if you can synergize it well. For Fire Strays, they have to deal with it, and Demon's going to be trying to catch the pigeons right out of the sky with the help of Binary, and I feel like we are just running it back to the old Insomnia days.
I mean, not just the fastball special that you have to worry about if you're the Torch. You actually have to worry about the literal fire extinguisher in the form of Sloppo. Like, water beats fire in terms of the table. And Pink does not have... Well, he does have to worry about the Jeff fall-off. As speaking about fall-offs, Frankie has to just get the environmental onto Binary, who takes a dip in the pit. And that will just mean that Strays have to back off this fight entirely. No Hulk to be able to open up the space and draw the attention of the Angela or the Torch. That's a go back, GG, go next.
As Sloppo's switched over, Blackstar's gone over towards the 4. Sloppo's changed again. I swear, every time I look at a player in the top, it's just a different hero. It's just one of those, like, kind of... fever dreams, I suppose, of how this has been going. But for Peps, at least there's something to hold on to. You can see Pink having to dodge back as the Angela is going to come out on the other side, and the Banhammer now from Zenost, from the strategist side of Deadpool, is going to go right into the face of the Torch. He's doing his best to try to add in suppressive fire onto the ground to make it a little bit more of a quite literal hot step against Team Peps. But now it's going to be on the other side as Peps are going to bring out their own Banhammer. IMLK looking to try and shove and push this one back, gets Zenost on the way out, and even connects onto Closar, so those strategists are starting to go down. And Peps are probably starting to feel a little bit good about how this is going.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really big elimination because that impacts now the next fight. Snos is going to swap onto the Loki. If you're wondering why we're getting the Loki swap, it's because Six can start the next fight with Rage of Ultron. Closer will have Invisible Boundary, but ideally for Strays, you don't want to use Invisible Boundary in reaction to the Ultron ult because it's static and it would be used on your side of the map as opposed to being closer to the objective itself. Speaking about ults though, Demon swaps to the Star-Lord, and this is the hardest counter for both the Ultron and the Torch to have to deal with, as Strays are going to take a little bit of a longer wraparound rotation, try to play more around cover, again delaying the opportunity for Six to open up with the Rage of Ultron, closing up the space so that they can use the Invisible Boundary in anticipation of it. Heaven's Retribution alongside the Torch ultimate is going to make that particularly spicy position to play inside of, but Strays get outside of it without losing players and take us to the long term.
Oh no, I don't know if there's going to be much chance of any like portal plays now because of just how close this is, but you can see Six actually be the one switch over. Blacks out anybody that tries to get onto the point, just clear them off of it. Just do your best to actually make some space in the end as there's more switch ups. I swear we've seen more hero switches in this map than some of the other series that have been fully played out in the end. But now it's actually going to be Team Peps moving away from the Strange. I don't know whether they got interrupted with a portal and opted against it or whether they want to save it for a little bit later on because there's not a lot of space to work with here.
Yeah, Peps are off of the torch tier. They know. Demon's about to get Galactic Legend as this fight opener. And Pink, even if Peps are able to come on through with something like a Strategist Ultimate, might not be able to bail him out as Blackside tries to go through with the pressure from the 4 onto the high ground. Combination of God of Thunder plus Ensong Inferno, capitalizing on the stun effect of the 4's ultimate as Frankie Boxing goes down before Soul Resurgence. But Peps still have to run into this fight, even a Vanguard down. They have so little space that they can afford to give strays. They have to take these fights and draw them out for as long as possible. Invisible Boundary aggressively from Znost forces Baby Bat to have to use the Fate of both worlds, and that means that strays just disengage out of it, come on through with Galactic Legend once it's done, keep the heals up even through the Banhammer damage coming on through from Demon with the stagger out of the Guardian Shield from closer, and they have unmatched Invisible Boundary for the fight that will just secure the fight.
Oh, they even got time to actually touch it. It doesn't look like it. It has to be ushered in, and the leap over isn't going to quite be there for Team Peps. Honestly, that was just like one of those like slapping match tournaments with these teams that you can't turn away. You can't not look at how it's been going. But at least some moments for Peps, like the composition there, I think the right idea towards the end. It was just a Fire Strays are well versed enough to go and swap to the right kind of heroes to deal with it. And just a bit of a rough fight. I think it was like 3 ultimates used in the end from Peps when they went in for the ultimate play with Human Torch and then a Heaven's Retribution from Angelo on the high ground. And it was all just countered out by an Invisible Boundary that's one-sided. Like, there's only so much that you could do in those instances, but you held on pretty well.
Yeah, I think as well it was problematic where the Heaven's Retribution was actually like focused. Because the thing is, you should be able to, if you stack up those tornadoes from the Torch ultimate, the whole ideology behind the Torch group meta, all the way back in Prime Torch Ultron composition, was that you would use Strangling Prison, you would stack all of the Torch Hurricanes on top of it because they all do their own damage as opposed to just mass damage, which meant that you would actually be able to break through the sustainability of something like a Fate of Both Worlds from a Luna. So when you weigh that up versus Invisible Boundary, they should still be able to break through the heal sustainability. Problem is, Heaven's Retribution, you're not stacked in one position. You can still actually go around the circle. And what ended up happening was that Strays had a wall that they could just hug the ledge of to stay outside of the damage, with the tethers allowing them that space to move.
Yeah, Peps is pretty much down to its last brick in this preseason wall. It's starting to be pulled apart from Fire Strays. We'll see how it's going to go after this break.
Watch out, they're headed our way! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man! cortisol. 1,000 gods!
And we are back. As Ryan mentioned in that cast, so many swaps from these teams, and it's exactly what we heard in the interview with Ducky earlier, of just, it's so important to be able to adjust midway through a game now. It's so different to what we had last year, and right now, Fire Strays are starting to extend their lead because of it. We're waiting to see where Peps are going to be taking us for this potentially last map if they're not able to bring it back. All we know, Moxie, is well, we just found out, it's going to be Convergence, and it's going to be Hall of Jalia. What are you thinking?
I mean, looking at the ban draft though, it's the same problems that you faced on Convoy, especially on like all of the Convergence maps. I can see why they wanted Convergence to come for last, because like the low-key Adam was problematic for them on both Convoy, but also Convergence as well. And I think like Strays getting one-sided low-key was probably one of the harder aspects for Peps to have to deal with going into that Araco. Problem is, like, so much else requires being looked at in the ban draft. I don't know if you can go for the Loki ban.
It's also a map that we have seen a lot more like Ultron and stuff be used on, like attack and defense, so more verticality, which is going to suit what Peps are wanting to do. But the only other time that they played Convergence full stop was when they picked it in the last series against Virtus Pro, where they got full held on Central Park. So that's all we've seen.
And hopefully full hold is what they'll be attempting to avoid, as Peps are definitely, they've been able to get some momentum going in the series so far, but it's just getting past Fire Strays after those first points is seemingly where difficulty is starting to come in. We've seen some very creative picks and bans here, especially with the fact that they do seem to be willing to sacrifice both the Gambit and the Elsa, which is very unique for us. We'll have to see if that theme continues as I send you all over to Moxie and Ryan Central for what could be the last game, unless Peps can bring it back.
I mean, I worry for Peps, like, when moving on to Convergence, you can make a shout to play the Mantis Ultron, but at the same time, as we saw from Strays, they adapted so quickly when they clocked that it was a Torch Ultron composition coming on through with that Star-Lord. And again, like, even without the Gambit, Star-Lord is still very problematic for Flyers to have to deal with. And it's just not enough lines in the ban draft for you to be able to look at both the Star-Lord and the Loki and the Mantis and the Gambit and the Elsa.
Seems that we're going back to the first draft a little bit with like the Invisible Woman, probably available on both sides. I think here makes sense. Some good verticality if you want to keep working with the Strange. Mantis being banned out second, so Gambit is left a lot later on as both teams want to make sure that a one-sided Invisible Woman isn't going to be on the cards against Team Peps this side. They're going to protect it and probably take out the Mantis here.
Yeah, I think like first race, honestly, you're okay with just continuing the Invisible Woman mirror because you've been getting the better of it for the last two maps, right? So it's on Peps to have to try and adjust what they're coming through with as we get the Mantis ban, no damage boost for both teams, no Gambit for both teams. Loki still going to be available. The last time Strays went for the save onto it, they could well go for the save onto it here because that then leaves them open to potentially coming on through with an Adam Loki composition to really stall things out at some point in this map, but they're actually going to go for the Vanguard Deadpool instead, which has been doing a lot of work, being able to come on through with those isolating unicorn shields and cut off Peps's backline from that front line is really, really important at being able to set up these eliminations quickly so that we don't see the amount of brawl lengthy fights that we had on Domination earlier.
Loki's been banned out. I imagine unless there's a protect here, it is going to be banned out on the other side from Peps. From Fire Strays as the final option. But really, like a lot of things that they could go for here, like if they want to make sure that they have their duelists to work with. No, they want to make sure that they get their own Deadpool Vanguard, which I imagine is going to be IMLK playing it. I think Frankie can touch on it a slight amount, but with the Invisible Woman protected on both sides, I would imagine it would be Frankie over on the Strange, much like Blacks is going to be on Fire Strays.
Yeah, straight mirror in terms of the ban draft. Might as well be on MRC lines with the access of heroes that everyone has here. But for Peps, there's going to be a little bit of focus, like you said. I am LK is going to be going for that Vanguard Deadpool, but Frankie Boxing is very likely going to be going through onto the Angela when we do go into the map, as we have a slight delay to the schedule coming on through before things start off. We will have a ever so slight pause, but we get a taster, Ryan, that we get to see as opposed to the rest of the stream of what exactly the heroes are going to be coming on through. And like, while we sort of looked at the Loki getting banned out, which again, no brainer, this is Hall of T'Challa, this is easily one of his strongest maps, we do still have Ultron in play for both of those teams. So there's always going to be a, well, you could go triple strategist on your defense for first point especially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of looking at it a little bit from like Fire Strays as well. Like Ultron, at least for like the most played characters, isn't amongst that list, whereas we're seeing a Six actually pick it up more so than the likes of Jean Grey or Psylocke. So Six has sort of been in, like, I wouldn't say Ultron jail, but has pretty much tried to be the spearhead of that one. Whereas I think for Fire Strays, we're seeing Demon mostly being on like the White Fox and Mantis when they can get a hold of it. And then like Closar, the typical like main strategist, I guess you could call it, Invisible Woman, Jeff, Dagger. A team that has notably been avoiding Gambit, just not been prioritizing it, against the likes of Peps that haven't really been bothering with the Elsa. And because of that, we've seen neither of them in action today so far, at least for these two teams.
I mean, I know it's sort of like taboo for casters to talk about attacking team compositions as well before they've actually locked them, because, yeah, we can get baited too, chat. Do not worry. It's a sort of like rite of passage. But what we're looking at currently on the side of Peps with like this Hela with this Phoenix Crossfire hover potential, I am actually okay with going through. I think like if you try and go for an Ultron composition, you could be vulnerable to something like the Star-Lord on your attack. Having the Phoenix, having the Hela, having the Angela to be able to make a lot of space for your duelist to be able to work with too, being able to set up multiple angles of pressure on your attack so that Strays can't just control the full map space before you get a chance of doing anything could be really, really strong. And we talked about Hall of T'Challa being very, very good for Loki. It's also one of Hela's best maps too. Where it's going to be a little bit problematic is how vulnerable that Hela will be if the fight is brought to her. And that's where we're going to start to like really see things like the Invisible Woman that Baby Bat is currently on coming into play, making sure that you can just guard the off angle that your Phoenix or your Hela is playing so that you can have as much map space as possible while making sure that you're not just isolating one person to get, you know, just dove on the moment that Strays clock her.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the strategist backlines too, Fire Strays certainly a lot more experienced, I'd say. Closar and Zenost have been the main backline of all business. Then throughout all of 2025, it was the MRC that was the first one that we probably saw that they had a good performance in and have been pretty much at the top of EMEA's game since. You've got Baby Bat and also I think Protoss with some experience from Stage 2 Ignite of last year, but very little in comparison. Playoff runs at least for Baby Bat with Vice, but that's as far as it can realistically go. And it might be as far as Peps realistically go unless they can win out here on Jalia. Them attacking first, same as Arako, hoping to have a better start and not get stalled out on first.
Well, no bait. This was the composition that Peps commit to, and like I said, not opposed to it. You have a lot of damage burst potential. Strays have a triple strategist line, but with how fast your Phoenix and your Hela can do the damage, you might actually be able to break through the slower healing potential of things like that Ultron drone, as Six is trying to take this high ground position, dueling out Strays' own high ground hold. Demon's taking multiple angles of fire. This is what we were talking about, right? Hela from the high ground, Phoenix from the opposing side. Strays caught right in the middle with nowhere to run, and Peps just pins her onto first of Djalia to claim all of the map space.
Yeah, first nice pick, and it seems it's going to stress out Fire Strays a little bit more as Banhammers were used, but Black Sow is taken out. Means that it's a little bit more scarce in the end. Demon over on the Strange, whether there's going to be enough stall to go for a pot, I'm not quite 100% sure, but that's another pick in the end for Peps, who are really like leading the lines. It started on that first map of domination that they weren't able to get the picks needed, but now they have to try to beat out the stall as ultimates might start to build up in the end. Binary is going to go down as Frankie Boxing cut us through with the Angela, and the Invisible Boundary's even going to be forced out, but they're still dropping like Moxie. It's really chaotic in the end, and Fire Strays still have numbers only ever so slightly. It looks like they're only going to be able to stall this out for like a minute or two more.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Strays, maybe you can force out Invisible Boundary from Baby Bat, but that fight is literally just going to allow Baby Bat to have uncontested Invisible Boundary to react to things like Feast of the Abyss coming through in this next engagement, which Binary is going to have to wait to have access to, as like you said, Pink is able to, on that Hela, just find the elimination late, and we can see that they know the Venom will not work, even with the Jeff in play. The Angela being able to counter-spear your engagements, as well as running into both the Charm from Protoss with Spectral Surge and Force Physics from Baby Bat means that the Diver's just not having any actual threat to it, and Pink and Six are gaining all of the space to work with. Better to go to the Angela and try and clear out the Hela and the Phoenix separately.
Yeah, it's a 2-2-2 setup in the end now for Fire Strays. They want to try and like match it up as best that they can. You don't have the Hela on the other side, but Heaven's Retribution going to be used from Frankie Boxing, but IMLK goes down in the process. Similar to what we saw in Arako, just the coordination a little bit off, and you lose one of your Vanguards as the dive was looking to try and go in. The fight is still going splendidly though for Team Peps though, as Pink has had full command over on the high ground, really pushed Fire Strays back all the way, and because of the portal being used so recently, they're not going to have much of a chance to touch on here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Blacks go to this range, realizes, wait, Portal's still not back. And in that time, Peps picked up second. Where was this Peps? In map 1 and map 2, they have absolutely come alive. But question is it too little? Is it too late? As Pink has been an absolute fire. Hela not getting hit by the Deadpool ultimate goes into the Goddess of Death, and Strays don't have a strategist ult to be able to mitigate it. Blacks out just swapping now onto the Mac, no Meteor M, and they just have to give up the space. They don't want to lose more players and bleed out more control of her to Peps.
Yeah, Frankie's doing a great job in just sparing some of these players into precarious spots, and the rest of the team is feasting 3 ultimates, almost 4 with the Kamiho for Protoss in hand for the attackers, whereas the defenders with an invisible boundary want to try and set up his Closar, seeing if they can maybe go in and fight on the corner. Meteor M is sat back waiting, and they're really trying to keep an eye on where Peps are going for this fight. You can see that they're on the left-hand side. Black Cell's trying to sort of cordon off this main walkway as the Galactic Legend's going to come through. All of these ultimates as well. Invisible Boundary is going to be Venn diagrammed on both sides, as well as the Banhammers are going to come through from both sides of the Deadpools. Kamiho now charging on forwards as Binary is able to get that pick onto Six, and a bit of a shot in the dark for IMLK. Still able to find a pick onto Sloppo. Means that this payload is still churning forward.
I mean, Strays, though, will have their Phoenix back into the mix faster. Meteor M from Blacks out, attempted to get bubbled out by the Unicorn Shield from IMLK, so that Peps, they can just pull back. They're going to have Six back in the mix. You're going to have the Endsong Inferno to land onto Znos's summon with that Kumeho form, so you can just shred through it in one go, and Strays lose the sustainability. IMLK poking up, trying to rebuild the Banhammer. Binary held on to theirs, will be able to put it, forcing now that Endsong Inferno from Six, since Baby Bat just cannot heal without going down herself, and that might be enough for Strays to be able to stabilize their hold.
Yeah, Binary's done well actually to find a lot of these picks to make sure that this defense stops the payload for a brief amount of time. It's still 3 minutes on the clock for Peps to finish towards the end, but I feel they want to make sure that they can keep that momentum going. It's been stifled for the time being, but we haven't seen any switchovers compositionally. It's mostly on Fire Strays that have gone over to having the White Fox on their side. Heaven's Retribution now going in for the deep dive in onto Fire Strays, onto the back line. Finds a pick onto Binary. There's not going to be any ultimates expended on Fire Strays, still holding on to the White Fox, and everything else has been slowly built up. You can maybe look at the fact that Demon is very close to having another Galactic Legend, as well as an invisible boundary to match the one that Baby Bat has put down. They have to be a little bit more scared though, because the Goddess of Death is looming on the other side of it, and Sloppo taking his time to make sure that this duration is wrought out. Peps is still moving his objective forwards, and Frankie Box is trying to see if he can find another pick to pull out onto the point. Now it's going to be the White Fox charging her way through onto the objective. Fire Strays seeing if they can get the numbers onto the point to fight on the invisible boundary is going to help somewhat, but you could already see that like Team Peps have actually pushed beyond the objective, trying to get in towards the spawn doors, switching things around, but they've lost Pink. It's going to be a Banhammer thrown in onto, I think it's Six, that's managed to try and sneak his way out. He's under a lot of pressure in the end. The Binary, seeing if he can find something, gets the peel of Frankie Boxing and peels Frankie Boxing's wings straight off. The reset is good, but what a fight, Moxie. Team Peps just tried to cut all the way through Fire Strays.
Oh, they can't afford to lose anyone here. I mean, you've got Ensong Inferno, you've got Banhammer, and there's no strategist on the side of Strays, but what there is Meteor M as well as an Ensong coming on through from Slopper, plus Demon swapping off of the Starlord onto the Heller as well. So full duelist mirror coming through, pick potential, poke potential on Peps when they try to walk up and take some of the space that Strays already have pre-developed before the fight starts. So Peps have to slowly make their way in, not losing someone early. IMLK comes on through with the Banhammer, puts that onto Demon. Actually, it looks like to stop the Hella from shooting. Ensong Inferno comes on through from 6. Sloppo going for his own with the combo of Meteor M on top. And the backline is decimated. Strays wiping Peps' backline, now turn to the front line and deal with it. And we have a Portal recontest play coming on through from Frankie Boxing as Demon swaps onto the Wolverine. They've read that Strange is going to be in play. They know that the Hella could potentially be vulnerable. They'll go for the Wolf to have both their heal passive coming on out with the team up from the Phoenix, as well as that regeneration now. That Pink is on the Daredevil, looking to just get past the front line and hit the back line before Znos can use ult.
Yeah, they have to make a good meal of this one so far. Like, the push on, at least the objective's going to be hit, but you've used the Strange Portal pretty early on, so overtime is not going to be on the favor of Team Peps. Invisible Boundary is going to be used. Kamiho on the defense for Fire Strays as Binary charging on through with a Banhammer. Now there's a lot of actual, like, restraint from Fire Strays here as they've strayed away from the objective for a split second before they go in for the redive here. The Eye of Agamotto leaping in right onto where this Invisible Boundary was placed from Closer, who almost goes down, able to survive through it with the help of Znos, who was also taken out with the stun in the end. Still able to hold on a little bit more hope as Banhammer from IMLK looking to see if that backline can finally go down and stop Fire Strays from this, making sure this payload doesn't reach the end of this map. You've got the last stand now from Demon, seeing if it could be a last stand in the end from the attack of Peps. Nobody else is really alive to get going on this one. The portal was used up prior, so it is going to be just shy of that third and final checkpoint. Team Peps not going any further, at least on their attack.
Yeah, classic Call of the Jalia, especially from a pick potential composition from the attack, right? You lose that space, you lose one fight on third, your Hella, your Phoenix, they're not in position before the fight starts to put the pressure onto Strays, and Strays just deal with the threats one by one, having all of the cover to be able to hide that backline behind so you don't lose a strategist early, being able to hold your position with your front line to make sure that that objective doesn't push further into your space and force you to have to change your position. And then when you win one fight, you can start holding up closer into the attacker's side and force them to have to use ultimates, which you can just kite out or mirror, depending on what you want to do. But still, for Peps, honestly, a really good showing. Like, the tempo that they had for picking up first and second was very, very strong, and it is no surprise at all that when the sides swap, we're seeing the same composition. Like, now you have your Hella and your Phoenix already in position before the fight even starts, Ryan. So it's all about how Strays react, and if they can clear out the Hella and the Phoenix before Peps can use the crossfire to complete the full hold.
I would imagine, though, the Fire Strays are going to expect this, I think, with the Jalia pick of like, okay, we ran into the Hella. You've got Sloppo that is hovering over towards the Namor, but it is still in the attacker spawn. Could shift at any moment. Maybe with Blackstar switching over towards the Stranger, there's going to be a
just
portal
TP
play
on
right off of the bat. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just make sure that Sloppo could use the high ground themselves. That's going to be the case. There's some damage that's at least thrown out in the end from Peps, but they're going to see this coming.
Oh, here's the portal. Right through. It's actually not onto one of the isolated players from Peps' end like the Hella. It goes onto the high ground instead, but 6 is coming pretty low. Manages to drop off before you get picked. Frankie Boxing is the one that Strays turn onto instead. And now Strays can start making this counter rotation too, taking even more space away from Pep. Space that they would actually have their backline kite to when they come under pressure from main. Good charm though from Protoss in reaction. Sets up the pick with 6 on the chase down. And Peps have been able to stem the bleeding. They've lost 1 point of tick, but they haven't lost the whole fight, and they will be able to push Strays back. And next fight, Ryan, well, there's no more Strange TP to cheese all of that space. They have to walk through the gauntlet of the Phoenix and the Hella before the fight starts once more.
Yeah, they get the stepometer out, pedometer, to see if they can actually just make their way onto the point the old-fashioned way. So Peps deal with that nicely, considering that they were the first elimination against them. being caught out from Frankie boxing. But the good thing is that the Angela going down means it's going to be a fast rotation all the way back to the point on this defense. Black's out now. Yeah, he's like, I don't have a portal. I've just got to find what is the other good route to go down in this way. And like for compositions, it's looking like they want to keep it the same. They finally pick onto Protoss though, which is a major one. It is going to force that Banhammer on the other side, which might lead to 2 for IMLK, who in favor is wanting to make this work. Binary though, dedicating their own Banhammer. It's a good ultimate sprout in these cases, and it's allowed Sloppo to actually find a pick. So it's still another really chaotic fight in the end that both teams are trying to adjust to, as Firestray seeing if they can grab 2/3.
I mean, they might be able to grab all of them as Pink has to swap onto the Strange and try and teleport Peps back in time. Someone still alive will be able to hold on to the space long enough for the TP regroup to come on through. 6 so close to having Endsong, but goes down 1% off getting it online. Sloppo's got the Horn of Proteus too, so Peps have to be very, very careful that they don't lose someone to the one-shot potential of that Namor ultimate. Demons coming back on the Star-Lords here. Much more survivability with the iframes. There's the Ensong Inferno capitalizing off of the slow setup from Baby Bat, catching onto the Invisible Woman, but Stray still think that this is winnable. Out comes the Kumeho Unleashed, stalling everyone up with Sloppo trying to find the follow-through of the Horn of Proteus. It gets dodged though, and Peps with the Eye of Agamotto turn onto Strays. No CC immunity. Complete the hold.
Ooh, big fight win in the end. Pink being the saving grace with his own portal play. Sloppo jumping off the map to try and reset fast, and is going to switch over towards the Jean Grey. The Firestrays do make the right adjustments, but just a little bit later on, so there's a lot more stress that goes onto this potential final engagement of Halls of Jalia. Team Peps hoping to bring this map back in favor. They've got some stuff to work with, but it is pretty much only the Heaven's Retribution.
Not just that, but also just the Angela body blocking Galactic Legend coming through from Demon. Like, Pink shield has to be perfectly placed, but the Angela's using the ultimate on Strays aggressively, as opposed to being that's a body block for the back line. Still, Peps think the best defense is a solid offense. The problem for them, though, is that who's holding on to point now? Frankie Boxing has to turn around and try and stall it out, but Peps have already used that strange TP, and it comes down to just clutching, being able to survive. One went down to the Galactic Legend, but one still lived, and that strategist has been enough to keep the Angela in play. Frankie's able to scout out Slopper's position too, so no stall out potential for Strays to be able to touch long enough for Blackside to be able to get a strange TP.
A Banhammer is going to be used from Binary. He gets stunned out, though, and he gets pulled out of position, so the rest of the team is feasting. It was amazing peel onto Frankie Boxing to keep him alive, as he might have overextended as the rest of Firestrays came back into the fray. There goes the Banhammer from IMLK to clear up 2, 3 with the help of 6, and now Firestrays have nothing in order to touch it. Invisible Boundary is used to find the catch in the end, and it catches Pep, at the very least a map. Halls of Jelly goes their way, and they maybe save the best till last compositionally. They're starting to shine with the likes of the Hella and the comps, and yeah, Firestrays under a little bit more stress.
That's how you beat a triple strategist sustain composition. You have so much incoming burst pressure that they just don't have the time to be able to heal it back up. You get those eliminations back to back to back, you take all of that map space. The problem for Peps, though, is that it came out so late in this first to 3. Strays now losing that map get the opportunity to choose where we go next. And I guarantee you that that map will not favor Hela or Phoenix.
It's probably going to be the case. Looking at like Firestrays, because they have access to a majority of maps here. They could go for the like the Yggdrasil. We saw a Museum as well picked from them. They would have maybe gone for Heart of Heaven, but because we've just played Convergence, it's not going to be the case. Maybe they just go to Domination because of how strong it looked on that first opportunity when we saw them on Jalia. So we'll have to see where Firestrays want to be able to take this one for map 4 as we start to see a little bit more played out of Peps, or whether that's going to be the end of it. Stay tuned. We'll be back after a quick break.
Watch out, they're headed our way. Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
The hunt is on. 1,000 gods!
Some star-making performances out of Peps there, really showing what they can do and taking us to a map number 4, still in this series. And we have been informed, Moxie, that we're going to Museum of Contemplation, and you said something in the break I would like you to repeat here about the Hella Phoenix.
I mean, it's a little bit of a surprise that it's Museum of Contemplation. I think, like, for Strays, obviously this was the map that you pulled against Na'Vi, so they've obviously got a confidence boost in being able to play this one. But I feel like it also leaves the door open for Peps to lean into something like the Phoenix composition, which did really, really well for them with just the tempo control of having that poke pressure of both the Phoenix and the Hela when they played Hall of Dejalius. And a lot of very long, open line of sights when you walk around those corners in the museum.
But Ryan, Moxie already mentioned that FYR did take a map off of Na'Vi with this map. What else can you tell me about this map for these teams?
We've seen a good amount of it for Peps, I think, with just like they played against Na'Vi and Heretics on it in that first week. Lost both the maps, but there was like a lot of like good moments from them realistically. It felt like Heretics were really starting to come into the form that we know them in right now and what we're expected to see from them in the upper bracket a little later on today. It was just that Peps did relatively well to keep up at pace with them realistically. So this isn't inherently a bad map for Peps, despite the fact it being a 0 and 2 for them and a map that they've picked themselves in the past. It does feel like if they could tighten up their gameplay a little bit more, FYR Strays might not have the same amount of success. Granted, like Moxie said, they beat Na'Vi yesterday. They're going to want to take that confidence into this one. It's just whether they change the draft at all or whether they're going to keep things mostly the same.
And let's ask that question. Do we think they're going to change the draft at all? Let's start with Ryan. Continue your thought.
So I think you've got like pretty much a mirror matchup there, which I think goes to suit Peps if they want to go off the beaten track here, because the comfort is really strong for them. We've seen in interviews with other players saying we don't want to rely on comfort, we want to play what's meta. Here in these kind of games where both teams are a little bit more scrappy, play what you're good at. If it's Hella, play Hella, because there was so much of a big difference there.
And Moxie, I will ask the same question of you. Do you think we're going to see some adaptation? Do FYR Strays, after seeing that and knowing that they're the ones taking us to this map, do they say maybe not, but they'd lose so many of the priority bans to do so?
I don't think you burn a ban on the Phoenix or the Hela, especially because like Museum of Contemplation, while there's also like a lot of really good line of sight positions, I feel it's more that we would see the Phoenix be played over the Hela because there are so many flank routes for dive teams to be able to just wrap onto the Hela before she gets the opportunity to poke them down from range. So I think, like, again, this is more Strays just like, okay, we're fine with playing what we played previously. We can go a triple strat line. We can go for sustainability. We can try and go for a heavier brawl style if we get the strange invisible woman coming back on through. And they're also trying to put a stop to some of the things that Peps are doing that was working out for them in Hall of Dejalius. So when we go into the ban draft, would be unsurprised if we see it remain as it has been previously. And yet again, we do start off with, yep, there we go, Elsa ban into Invisible Woman save on the side of Strays.
I have been enjoying these maps that we're seeing both Elsa and Gambit banned out, because it's usually one or the other at the very least, but here it's almost like a utopia of like, this is what the game could be like if these characters weren't as strong as they are. And even like not as much focus on Mantis either means that you do get like a different look. For Fire Strays, it feels like the second week was them really leaning hard into the triple strategist compositions. Here, however, they are going to be pulled away from it into more 2-2. That seems to be the game plan for what Team Peps are wanting to try and put together.
I mean, Invisible Woman as a strategist is just strong all round, right? She has Pierce attached to her primary, so if you're stacking up and taking these multiple brawl positions with your whole team, Invisible Boundary just charges up so quickly, despite the nerfs being made to Ultimate as a whole. You do still have to worry about things like the Loki, so again, we are going to be seeing that one come through, but it will be one-sided. Peps go for the Loki ban into potentially the Loki save, as Strays have already been able to secure the Mantis removal. And, oh, wait, Peps?
Nope, never mind.
Vanguard Deadpool instead. I mean, yeah, IMLK, honestly, for what he was able to do, like, multiple times there on Holo de Shai, especially on their defense, Strays walked away with an elimination at the start, and then IMLK was able to just go deep into the backline with the survivability of the Vanguard Deadpool and find the trades to secure the fight win.
You are going to manage to get some one-sidedness. It's not going to be a complete mirror ban because the Mantis has been banned out against Team Peps and protected for Fire Strays. I would imagine here, like, banning out the Deadpool Vanguard means that you have some one-sidedness to work for. I do like the Jean Grey. We have seen, like, this a little bit later on in the drafts of Peps, really adding a curveball into this one. And if it's a case of Fire Strays wanting to play triple strategist, well, you don't have the Elsa anyway because that's not been allowed. Jean Grey probably was second in nature behind the triple strategist, like the solo duelist with triple strategist. You've taken her out as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have the Invisible Woman as well, we got to see from multiple fights of Holo de Jalia how often the Invisible Woman was essentially joined at the hip with the Phoenix's position, providing those Guardian shields. If you try and jump the Phoenix, you go directly into that stun potential as well of the Invisible Woman, which then leads into the CC chain coming on through from the Phoenix M2. So I really do like this approach. Like, yes, the Mantis gets through, but the Mantis now loses some of those crucial duelists that you would traditionally look to empower. You still have things that you have to worry about, obviously, like Wolverine, Punisher, potentially even the Psylocke. And that Mantis damage boost is going to be doing a lot for Strays, both in terms of damage boost, but also in being able to secure the team up from Black Sao, who's actually going to be able to play his comfort pick of the Groot this time around.
Remember what I said to you? I think it was like after the first game of Museum of Contemplation we casted, I was like, that was like a white knuckle roller coaster. That was so fast. It was crazy tempo. And it was Team Peps. This whole series has been like that. So this could be the potential last hurrah for Team Peps, unless they want to bring this to a full best of 5. It's Fire Strays attacking first, their choice to push this onwards. And it is the Adam composition looking to try and work with 6, hoping that he doesn't go down and can bring this fight to a standstill as much on the defense.
We're going to be seeing a lot more Wolverine as well, it feels like, especially if you're trying to run this Venom. IMLK just cannot commit to going to disrupt Strays' backline or dive the objective because of the amount of counter dive potential both from the Wolf grabs, but also things like the Mantis Sleep and the Invisible Woman Force Physics. And you can see the lack of space that Peps had. They just get walked onto before they can create that divide in attention. So 6 falls, 36% to the first first karmic revival, and that's where Blackstar on this group also comes into play. Those walls, they're blocking off the line of sight for both the Adam and the Invisible Woman. Like you said, they have to touch, but they have no ultimates to actually make a play for it. And that lack of confidence just means that they miss the timings, and Strays managed to pull the checkpoint for 0 contest.
And then everybody gets eliminated or jumps off the map to reset here. The whole conversation just did not do anything. That was like watching a car crash in slow motion as Team Peps snailed their way to try and contest that. Now switching over away from the triple strategist, which didn't see all that much work, as Fire Strays showing a little bit more of their prowess of what they did on their attacking side against Na'Vi 2.
Yeah, snowball potential here, though. Like, Baby Bat will have Invisible Boundary. Maybe you go for a combo with the slow into Hand of Khonshu follow through from Pink. Unless Pink goes down early here to just pot shots with Mantis damage boost, taking a little bit too much fire before you're expecting it. Oh, Hand of Khonshu does land, taking out some of the squishies, forced by the ban hammer coming on through from Binary. But like you said, objective still moving. Closer is able to come on through with the Invisible Boundary. Baby Bat has second cast, though, and Team Peps, they're not out of this. They've got the close to respawns, they've got the later Invisible Boundary. That's enough to solidify their hold, and Strays are pushed back.
They're holding out for as much of this hope as they can do for Peps. At least they managed to get this truck to stop for a moment, because it has been pretty much moving at full speed throughout the entirety of this attacking side, and it's only been a couple of minutes, mind, but still, it's gone a fair distance here. This fight isn't quite over, though. Firestray's not really resetting that fast. Soul Resurgence, as well as that Final Judgment, means that it's a turn through, as the Endsong Inferno is going to slam down from 6, trying to command the high ground a little bit more, as it's the Banhammer used from Binary at the same time. It's Firestray's trying to go for a very quick riposte, but it's, again, been silenced for Peps, as they've got the payload in a pretty good spot for the defenders to be holding.
Big play as well that Peps are able to win out the fight against Final Judgment while still having Kumeho unleashed for this next one. You do have to worry about Wolverine. Health percentage damage against 900 health Summon Fox is not going to be a fight that the Wolverine will lose, but it does mean that Peps have the ability to brawl into the Invisible Boundary coming on through from closer. But you can see, yeah, look how fast Protoss's health bar declines when Demon's able to come on through with the last stand into just the adamantium claws, ripping, shredding, and tearing through the Fox's hide.
Yeah, it's the Hand of Khonshu. I would imagine that we're going to see a switch over here from Peps. Is there going to be a pole play? Is it going to be able to touch in time? It just, managed to actually get this fight still going. Pink has switched over to the Daredevil, able to leap out to make sure that Matt Murdock is going to get a bit of a spurned approach to this fight. And now Peps still actually stalling for a lot more time. In fact, they might even be looking to win this fight. Maybe Fire Strays were expected to make the adjustments to go into the third area of the map, but it was a very swift punch in from Frankie Boxing with the portal. It's actually allowed Peps to hold on second a little bit longer.
Baby Bat has unmatched Invisible Boundary here too. So, like, if Strays tries to make an aggressive play forward, engaging with Soul Resurgence from Znos, which was the green light for multiple times in these past engagements, Baby Bat can just react with the Invisible Boundary leading into the Endsong, slamming down on top of Strays. We get Banhammer kicking things off from Peps first. 6 comes on through of the Endsong, just stopping Strays from taking momentum with this Mantis ult, but 6 still goes down after the ult's ended. Unfortunately, the Invisible Boundary, it's not actually in the position on the objective. A little bit of a misclick, a panic of the moment, and that's going to cost Peps the point.
Oh no, it's a bit of a misstep. It seemed that there was going to be that aggressive nature of the Endsong Inferno. Clears a lot of the group walls, but that's pretty much all it does. Fire Strays able to keep this fighting and going. And Demon's doing a lot with the Wolverine when it comes to this disruption. And bear in mind the fact that Fire Strays don't have that team up with Jean Grey. That was banned out. It's on the other side. 6 is going to be on it, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any other defensive switches other than a Moon Knight back for Pink. Okay, so the Daredevil wasn't working. He's gone back to the original spammer.
I mean, the problems for Peps here, though, is that Slopper actually swapped onto the Winter Soldier. We didn't really get to see the impact of it in the last fight. We'll absolutely get to see the impact of it. Kraken impact, to be exact. Slamming down with Strangling Prison as the first setup. And Peps have very little that they're going to be able to respond to with it. Like, Protoss can come out with the Kumeho Unleashed, but with both the Wolverine Ultimate, you're looking at a very fast burn through from that. Eye of Agamotto connects onto both the group, but no eliminations! Strangling Prison! Prison Kraken impact, and the ground shakes with that one. Strays claw through the fight, and Peps are sent back to the respawn post-haste.
Yeah, the museum is closed for refurbishment as Fire Strays just burnt a hole straight through it. A slam down from all of the combinations, enough to send Team Peps back for a moment, but there's no changes in the composition. Gonna try and stick at it, but there's no space for them to work with. Sloppo's done well to just create this space. It means that Frankie Boxing can't get too far forward to actually contest this. And they're already losing out players. It looks like Fire Strays are going to be able to finish out the map as Team Peps have nothing left to go with on this defense. Scrambled it back on a torrid first point to keep it even on second, but that was a full stop and multiple exclamation marks with how Fire Strays ended that one.
Oh, the Tainted Voltage too, to be able to find the connection onto Pink. Tainted Voltage is AoE. Like, if you're trying to, like, work out how Buckies build their ultimates up so quickly, it's that. You literally just fire off his E into the stack of players. You'll get, like, 30% of your ultimate in one hit, and surprise, you've got 2 charges of it. But it also means that he's able to find the connection onto the Moon Knight, and Peps is sort of spiral out of control from that. They're trying to have people just go coordinate who goes to touch the relay race of holding the objective so that Strays don't just complete the full push, and that means that the Winter Soldier is just unleashed into your backline.
Yeah, the full stop at the end of Sloppo's name is that. It's just what we just saw there. It's a hell of a proclamation, I think. But for Peps, it's going to be a little bit...
mic drop. That's what
it pretty
is.
much is. It could not be set up further. You could be like meticulous about it, be like, oh, you didn't need to use all that much together. But I think it was to really send a point to Peps here that this is where the series is going to potentially end. It is Team Peps' chance to attack. And the times that we have seen them play, they have attacked first because they chose this map. Now, they're going to have to deal with the fact that they have to finish out Museum of Contemplation too.
Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan of the fact that Strays are keeping the Winter Soldier Groot combo for this. Like, you have so much counter dive potential. You've also got counter Wolverine potential, right? So you can play for the combination to win your one ult fight with the Strangling Prison Kraken impact when Peps don't have an answer to it. And Gambit's banned out, so no Purify. Binary is actually going to be able to find the Battle Recall Beacon early on, so Peps lose the ability to bring one of their players back and also have to send someone to go clear that Vanguard Deadpool, or Binary just gets to establish that position for free and poke down your Vanguards to build a pole.
Yeah, it's not good. You got 2 Groots fighting around the column, just trying to whack each other to the best of their abilities. One is, however, going to maybe overstep it as IMLK is looking to try to reset and regroup with the rest of the team. Ultimate's farmed up fairly quickly, but you have to be looking at Binary that is going to be pretty much uncontested with the Deadpool Vanguard building up that Banhammer. Strangling Prison actually might just beat him in the end, as Blackstar was able to do so much damage in the end. It's going to be thrown out, and it's enough to actually find the clearance onto these players. Binary not even needing to use the Banhammer. It's just going to shoot them square in the jaw and take them out.
I mean, it was Unicorn Shield from Binary. Unicorns usually make people's dreams come true. That shattered Peps' dreams. They had no strategist at all. They couldn't break line of, like, they had no line of sight on the heal as well for the people caught out by the Groot ult because of the Unicorn Shield interference. And Bionic Hook, Trooper's Fist comes on through from Sloppo, forcing the Bulwark coming on through from Frankie.
Ooh.
Pink makes space for the team with the Hand of Conchu, but Strays just disengage out of it. They've still got the Kraken impact. Demon 2 is still on this position. Like, Peps cleared it the first time with 6, but Demon's now just occupying it instead.
Yeah, you need to make sure that you take the bins out properly as this Fox has come around skulking again. And now Peps have actually managed to find a little bit more off of the Iron Amplifiers, seeing that Fire Strays were a little bit astray with how they were playing. Now split up, need to find a pick onto Demon, and they're sort of cutting the ties of Fire Strays that have been left in the dust a little bit as this payload starting to move forward. They can't ignore it. It reminds me a little bit of what Na'Vi were doing on Jeff, where they got into the split position beforehand, but Fire Strays split, to say the very least.
Oh, I mean, Peps at least, they've got the invisible boundary so they can hold their position on the objective itself to try to just take Sanctuary inside Baby Bat's ultimate in reaction to the Solar Resurgence. Frankie comes on through with the Meteor, and can you find the connection onto Closer? No, invisible boundary holds later for Strays, and now you have to worry about Strangling Prison Kraken impact being the sentence, that full stop yet again to end this next fight. As Peps are out of strategist ultimates, they know the combination is up. up, and they cannot afford everyone to get caught in one go. Blackside's looking for the ult. Out comes the strangling prison. Sloppo gets the slam down with Kraken impact, and yet again, the full stop comes full swing.
Sloppo puts a stoppo to the attack once more, and there's another full stop at the end of his name. This comp is looking very tasty with these combinations, and with a minute left, it's not likely that we're going to see it unless Blackstar is able to farm up another Strangling Prison in record time. For Peps, they just need to not be taken out from the CC. There's so good connections from Sloppo when it comes to these bionic hooks that are coming through, and he's getting so much damage actually done from IMLK that's tried to sort of cut these corners, make a little bit more of a crossfire, but it's not scaring Firestrays away from this engagement yet. Handa Conchu dodged neatly from Firestrays, able to keep on retreating and then go in for the counterattack to find a pick onto Baby Bat, who's just struggling to make presence for herself. She gets cut through, cut down again, and now a portal play needed for Peps if they want to be able to touch this, as they haven't hit burst.
I don't even know if Strays are going to give them the respect of letting them have a portal cast. They're playing outside of Pep's own spot. Frankie goes on to the Strange, but a good charm coming on through from the Fox might be able to cut it short. Nope. Portal does come through in time. No. And unfortunately for Peps, rather, it's not close enough to get the back cap through. You still have to contest with the invisible boundary. Cosmic Yarn Amplifier ends on combo, tries to cut through it, but the summon gets broken before it can connect. Peps still losing. Players haven't been able to find the eliminations. Strangling Prison, no Kraken impact required, but this is still the full stop, at least for Peps' position in preseason, as Strays complete the hold and complete the series.
Peps are popped for the preseason, and Firestrays are going to continue on in this losers bracket to play on for the action tomorrow and beyond. And I've got to say, generally speaking, like Peps, after such a rough start, like able to find a little bit more identity with their team, with their composition. But here it's the Firestrays were just a little bit more experienced in their nature. They found the comps that work for them, the new map added, and then a little bit of the old. Groot MVP coming in for Black Soul makes it feel like we're at the Invitational again.
I mean, it's the amount of fights that they were able to secure and the amount of times as well that, like, Binary also does not go down once that whole map. Same too for Closer, which is wild when you look at how aggressive that Vanguard Deadpool was actually, like, positioned literally inside Peps' own respawn, essentially. And then Peps had to spend time. They had to delegate your Phoenix to go clear that position to try and survive the 1v1 against the Vanguard Deadpool. The moment that they saw that clear out had gone through, Strays just sent Demon through, because you knew if your White Fox got challenged, you just teleport out of dodge and you burn time off of Peps' bank. You burn the opportunity for them to push forward because they're having to constantly have one person looking behind them instead of just full pushing with 6 players on top of Strays before you can build up an ult bank and just guard your position like it's Fort Knox. And Strays had just a really good idea of macro plays on how to play defense at first of Museum of Contemplation.
They found what works for them. I think that's the main thing for Firestrays. It maybe took like a couple of games. You know, they're going to look back at like the Reason Gaming loss and stuff, and when they played Rad, who they might still need to face up against as we go further on into the playoffs with them. It's for Firestrays, I think it's now Sloppo really back into form. He was playing a lot of Elsa in those earlier games and like really starting to sort of make his presence known. I think as like one of the major hit scan players in this region. With the fact that we didn't see any Elsa today from him, he's shown up a lot and making sure that the likes of Bucky are still known and strong options for players might give them a lot to work with for the rest of the playoffs.
Which is going to be something that's delightful for them next patch, while you do lose a little bit of the grounding of the Trooper's Fist, the cooldown. That extra culling level for that Kraken Impact is going to be quite delightful. But despite Firestrays giving me 2 days worth of stress about my predictions after taking that one map off of Na'Vi and then losing one map versus Peps, making me extra worried 2 times in a row, they continued their run in incredible fashion. Blackstar's making an argument for himself to be once again back up there in the top Groots along with some of the others we've had in EMEA. It's becoming a very beautifully Groot heavy season, Moxie.
Yeah, Which makes me think maybe we see more Winter Soldier being brought in. We'll have to ask Strays too when we get one of them in for an interview if they'd been scrimming the Winter Soldier or if that's another like spur of the moment, the way that we had yesterday where you've got one person like Frost Mountain going, oh wait a minute, I know what can work in this situation. Let me pull out the storm. Because sometimes you just like you have a plan and you stick to it, and then other times you just go, okay, do you know what? This will work, and everyone just takes that leap of faith and trusts you and completes the map.
And Ryan, we already know what's going to be ahead for them, and it's going to be binary for an interview, by the way. But we're looking ahead at what's going to be next for Fire Strays. They're going to be playing against the loser of Shikigami or Heretics. A potentially, once again, very difficult roundup for them here. But I believe it will be a new match, as they were in separate groups.
Yeah. So it's a good chance to see if Fire Strays. I mean, they have just been improving, like in each game. Like it was, again, rough to begin with, but it felt that once the meta sort of aligned and once White Fox became a real option for them, they've been working wonderfully with it. And I think it's like, if they can sort of take something from this series away from like Peps, it's just like go for the comfort picks, go for a couple of those curveballs, because there is so much of a focus from some of the top teams on meta that sometimes meta might not matter. Just go for these characters that you can have a lot of impact with. Because when it comes to the opponents, they might not have as much experience playing up against a Hela or against the likes of a Bucky. Those kind of like adjustments could be major when it comes to some of these other teams focusing too much on what's really good right now.
And you know what's really good right now? A player being very punctual. We already have our interview being ready as we are joined by Binary from Fire Strays. Continuing your run through that lower bracket, an incredible performance. But that Hela Phoenix in game number 3 did send you for a little bit of a stumble there. What happened?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm actually very surprised, and I think Peps really played really good on this map. They played their angles really good, and we were not really prepared for that because this is also one of our maps we've been struggling with in the recent like series, so to say. Like yesterday against Navi, we have also played this map, and we're not doing too successful on it. So we're definitely planning on improving on getting better on this map because we're just not like quite there yet.
So the group we're seeing a lot of, it's easy to say like he's definitely one of the best picks in terms of Vanguards, but talk us through the Bucky. Was that something that you guys like premeditated coming into this map, or was that a sort of spur of the moment, wait a minute, Bucky Groot could be really strong here, let's pull it out even if we haven't been scrimming it lately?
I mean, we saw them taking a swap from Strange to Magneto at one point on the map. So we just told Slowpoke just go Bucky. They have a Daredevil as well, and just go have fun because they banned the Phoenix out, so we didn't have much other options, and we felt like if you wanna go Bucky, just go Bucky.
I mean, comfort is like fun, and it made a lot of exciting moments for sure. I do want to ask a little bit more about the Invisible Woman. Like we sort of spoke about it a little bit. Like there's been the Elsa being banned out, the Gambit as well. It's been more opportunity for other characters to show up. What can you tell us about the fact that both teams are protecting the Invisible Woman? Because it's usually an Elsa or a Gambit in there, right? Why is it that over, say, Mantis, for example, from your perspective?
I mean, like, for example, like our like kind of like vision for most maps, like especially like all those front to back maps, Museum, Midtown, even like Central Park to some certain extent. We just think like Invis is like the character that disables and enables like the most characters in the video game right now. Like you get the Strange team up, which is very popular. I think yesterday there was like a post where it's like the most played character in the game. In Ignite, so we just think like Invis is just really good in like controlling also the tempo of the game, because the push, in my opinion, is even more powerful than the pull, because it just enables your entire team to not get walked on by most of the comps. But yeah, that's just our team. Like the comps we play, we feel like the Invis Woman is a bit nicer to play with, and an unmatched Invis Woman like feels like really painful to play for most of the comps we play.
I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked earlier on. Your next opponent is going to be either Team Heretics or Shikigami, loser of that match coming into your lower bracket run. Do you have a preference, and how are you preparing for them?
I mean, our preference for sure is Shikigami. We're going more comfortable into the matchup against Shikigami because I feel like Heretics is doing really exceptionally great. Although I don't want to downplay Shikigami, I think yesterday or today against Red, yesterday against Red, I guess. They played a really solid. Yeah, they played a really solid match and honestly amazing to watch. So I'm definitely ready to that, but I feel like our preferred opponent is definitely Shikigami over Heretics.
And final question, as per usual, people who are coming in, just discovering this amazing thing of Rivals Esports that we do have here, might be seeing you for the first time. What do you have to say for any aspiring Fire Strays fans out there?
I just say go Fire. I hope we can make all our fans proud, and we're gonna lock in for every single one of you guys. And I hope we can give some exciting matches on the upcoming preseason finals. And hopefully we're coming back even stronger for stage 1, of course.
Already giving us some exciting matches coming up to now, and still more to go. Thank you for joining us very much, Binary.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You too.